I'm not happy. I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
There's insanity in the control room.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. I was leaving my sidebar up. Hey, it's Wednesday. It's midweek. Got a show for you today. We're going to get into some fun stories. As usual, Republican hypocrisy. You're going to love that. You're going to love who Fox News, Dana Perino, host on Fox News, who she blames for the pileup on I-95. I think you're going to enjoy that. Of course, we also have Ron Johnson versus science, as usual. We have also Democrats, establishment Democrats being establishment Democrats. We got a little bit of elitism from the new governor of, mayor of New York City. And then we, of course, are going to talk about how the rich are doing. Doing well. Doing great. Yeah. So, fun times. As usual. John Utterly being in Jeff's new intro is about as close as a new intro as he's going to get. Hey, you know what? I'm willing to help him with it. I will take my A+ editing skills, which are actually like D-, and put them and help out. All you got to do is just do an ask. Just got to ask. That's it. I'm willing to help. You know, reach out. You know how to get a hold of me. All right, anyway. So, that said, before we go and do more of the show, I just want to remind you, please like and share. Very important that you do so. Like and share the stream. Helps us out greatly, as usual. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm not even sure how you're here if you haven't already subscribed. On YouTube, like us on Facebook, and of course, follow us on Twitch. And so a lot of you did so yesterday, which is awesome. In fact, I want to give a shout out to Livstertech for subscribing with Prime yesterday after the show. Really appreciate that. All right. That said, let's dive into the show. All right, hold on. It appears that convicted criminal Dinesh D'Souza is not a fan of the police. Oh, well, that's very interesting. the Capitol Police. Let's just be very clear about the kind of police that he's talking about. In fact, recently, the conservative intellectual went on Laura Ingram's program to talk about how the police were doing brutality against the Capitol rioters. Take a look.
That if you follow January 6th at the granular level with the facts that are coming out slowly, they're coming out because the government has been very reluctant to release footage, particularly footage of what happened in the tunnel on January 6th, where you now begin to see these cops using massive amounts of force against unarmed Trump supporters, including women. The death of Roseanne Boyland is now being called into question. Was she the second Trump supporter that was killed by the authorities? Now, I think as all this empirical, irrefutable, on-video evidence is coming out, there's a kind of a necessity on the part of the left to conduct a big public dance which distracts attention from the facts and tries to sort of reinforce the original narrative. Oh, it was an insurrection. Yes, no one's been charged with insurrection, but somehow it was an insurrection without insurrectionists.
There is literally hours and hours of footage. Oh, they don't want footage getting out. Really? Again, literally hours and hours of footage of what happened that day. And by the way, notice the fun little use of idpol, right? I can't believe they would attack women, unarmed women. First of all, they were not unarmed. And second of all, wait, now, hold on here. Police, you all remember the case of Breonna Taylor, for example, sleeping in her bed, shot to death by police in a no-knock raid. Dinesh D'Souza, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's video out there of Dinesh D'Souza saying, wow, that was such a horrible thing that they were using such brutality against this young woman who was just asleep in her own house, in her own apartment. Maybe that video exists out there, but as far as I know, nope, not at all. Very, very strange here, very strange. But I love the whole shtick from some of these people that now, because we're alleging police brutality against Trump supporters, now we care about police brutality. Really? Because, I cared about police brutality long before then. And so, again, we also see what has happened. The mob on January 6th was attacking police officers. They were. One was dragged down the stairs, beaten with an American flagpole. Over 140 officers total were injured on the job. One was killed. And 5 people, by the way, in total during these riots died shortly during the riot or shortly afterwards. Now, in conservative circles, attacking police or even gesturing menacingly towards the police or reaching for the waistband, right? That's enough to get a black person shot to death. Hell, walking away from a police officer or running away from a police officer, either one gets you shot in the back. And conservatives are like, yes, correct. That is the right thing to do. He had it coming. He shouldn't have, he shouldn't have attacked the police. But wait, when insurrectionists, and yes, I am using that word because they were there for an insurrection. Oh, but nobody was arrested for insurrection. First of all, ongoing investigation. They're still making charges against people. And not only that, but they've been incredibly light-handed in doling out punishments and charges and prison time for people connected or that were part of January 6th. Okay? And so, an insurrection without insurrectionists. No, it was an insurrection attempt. And just because it failed does not make it any less of an insurrection. But as I said, if you're a right-winger and you attack the police, you get a slap on the wrist. Now, that said, I don't want anybody killed by police. That includes right-wingers. That includes unarmed black people. Generally, right? Now, Dinesh D'Souza, however, well, I think he thinks a little bit differently. In fact, Dinesh D'Souza despises Black Lives Matter and despised the peaceful protests that happened in the wake of the death of George Floyd. So, he's generally pro-police and pro-police brutality towards black people. In fact, on July of 2020, here's what he said for a video on PragerU.
Hi, I'm Dinesh D'Souza. My message to police officers is that I value you, Americans value you, and please know that you have my support. I'm proud to take part in PragerU's Back the Blue campaign.
Back the blue, defend the police. Unless, of course, you're so valuable, but unless you're protecting the Capitol against right-wingers. Now, the issue that I'm pointing out here is the gross double standard by people like Dinesh D'Souza. Again, I don't want the police abusing anybody. I even spoke out, by the way, against some of the Capitol rioters being kept in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement, by international law, is considered to be torture. I don't want anybody being treated like that. I don't want anybody being, abused by police officers, right or left. It doesn't matter. This is an issue not of politics, but an issue of civil rights. But what I really hate is when people are very selective on who this applies to. And that is Dinesh D'Souza. Okay? So that said, you can't sit there and watch the hours and hours of video that has come out about January 6th that covered these riots and argue that no, it was the police that was doing the brutality in this case. Now, have police done brutality against protesters? You goddamn right they have. You goddamn right they have. And you know what? I've covered that on the show before. But you know what was different about this? The ones where police used overwhelming force happened to be against people who were protesting oil pipelines or protesting the shooting and the shooting deaths of unarmed black people, or anything, of course, that challenges capital or capitalism. And so, and by the way, a good example of that is Occupy Wall Street. Peaceful protests that, guess what? What happened to Occupy Wall Street? Forced out by the police. And this is while right-wingers, people like Dinesh D'Souza, were looking at the crowds that were protesting against the banks, against large corporations, that were not paying fair wages, that were against the working class, the working people, the American people getting bailed out by the government. You know what they did? They decided to dump job applications to McDonald's on their heads. That's what they did. Oh, you lazy bums. Why don't you just go out and get a job? That's what you need. You get a job. You lazy bums. Get out of the park. Yeah, police, go get them. Go get them, cops. Bash your heads. Well, that's exactly what they said. And it's exactly what happened. Remember the water protectors in Standing Rock? They brought everything to bear. Water cannons in the freezing cold temperatures they used against the water protectors in Standing Rock. Indigenous protests, oil pipelines, anywhere that there's capital or wealthy interests, you had police there cracking people's heads. But when it comes to right-wingers, oh no. Generally, they got the kids' gloves on when you're dealing with the right-wingers, okay? But again, you look on the right, during those times when police were cracking the heads of peaceful protesters, water protectors, anybody on the right, were they standing up for them? Were they standing up for any of the protesters? Standing up for clean water? No, of course not. They supported the police wholeheartedly, because again, they're on the side of the rich, the powerful. So now you compare that to January 6th and you can see the difference. This time, cops were dealing with conservatives, with Trump supporters, and they hesitated. They were told, they were ordered, hold back, hold back. Don't engage. Don't, be very, very light with them. Kids' gloves, kids' gloves. Now, this is not me saying this. This is the police saying this. This is according to a 104-page report by Michael Bolton, the Inspector General of the Capitol Police. He put out a report. And the document that said that an intelligence assessment from the Capitol Police had warned 3 days before the Capitol rioters, before the Capitol riot, that these rioters, that Trump supporters, could turn violent in their efforts to overturn the election results and target Congress, which is exactly what happened. They wrote, "Stop the Steel's propensity to attract white supremacists, militia members, and others who actively promote violence may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and the general public alike." So now, the extreme right, and it's funny because all you hear about on right-wing media is how dangerous Antifa is. Oh, Antifa, dangerous, dangerous. Oh, the cops are in trouble. The black people are shooting cops. Oh, my God. You know the people that are the most dangerous to the police? Sovereign citizens. Far-right, anti-government people. They kill police. They kill law enforcement. Bundy Ranch guys will aim weapons at federal agents and officers and take over bird sanctuaries or whatever they took over. But no, oh no, it's Antifa. Oh, it's the left. That's the real problem. Oh my God. We got to stop the left. The left is the problem. Now, leadership, by the way, decided not to use the National Guard on January 6th. And they were instructed, the leadership had instructed the agency's civil disturbance unit to hold back on using their more potent crowd control measures. These are just things like stun guns, basically. Now, do you think they would have done that during a BLM protest? No. In fact, in many instances, police actually reportedly escalated violence in concordance with right-wing counter-protesters at the BLM rallies. And again, we know this by another analysis. In fact, of the over 7,300 documented Black Lives Matter events, only about 1% of police officers were injured, reportedly. At about 5% of those events, there were arrests made. Tear gas was deployed in 2.5% of the events. Overall, though, over 96.3% of events involved no property damage and no police injuries at all. And in 97.7% of events, no injuries were reported among participants, bystanders, or police. Overwhelmingly peaceful BLM protests were. But no, you look at the right wing, you listen to Fox News, entire cities were burning. Oh my God, they're burnt down. Oh my God. The entire city's gone. It's just gone. No, not at all. Not at all. Wrong. And by the way, there was a death of an officer in California, right? So now this was during the Black Lives Matter protest. The kicker is, it wasn't the BLM protesters that shot and killed that officer. No. It was a Boogaloo boy. Boogaloo boy. Yeah. So but we should totally ally with the Boogaloo boys. Yes, because they know what they're doing. Oh yeah, no, it's totally ally with them because they're anti-establishment. Weird. It's almost as if it's the far right that's violent and not the left. And it's almost as if police tend to treat right-wing protesters with a very soft hand, the softest hands. But when it comes to the left, maximum force. I wonder who they're afraid of, and I wonder who they're working with. Weird. Weird. And yet, because they decided to, fight back a little bit against a right-wing mob that ended up running roughshod over them. And here's the thing too. Dinesh D'Souza is calling the mob the victims. Oh, no, they're the victims. And the police, this time, who were, again, had that very soft hand in orders to stay back and not even deploy their, crowd control weapons. Oh, well, no, they're the aggressors. It was the police that were the aggressors in this case. Police brutality against right-wingers. Seriously. Look, I think we need major police reform. I think we need to defund the police. Like the NYPD, for example. Now, I know that's not a popular opinion, but that's my opinion. I think we need to defund places like the NYPD. They have a budget that's bigger than the entire GDP of some countries, small countries, and they're super over-militarized. Thanks, of course, to the right wing. Now, again, under Trump, and this had briefly stopped under Obama, kind of, but then Trump, Jeff Sessions brought it back. But there was a program here, or is a program, that would basically give surplus military equipment to police. So we're talking arms, we're talking vehicles, we're talking vests, we're talking all this military equipment that was used on the streets of Afghanistan that went to your local police department. And of course, in order to continue getting those goodies, well, they got to use them, right? They got to justify the use of those things. And guess where they ended up? They ended up in the streets of Ferguson. They ended up in the streets of Baltimore. They didn't end up on Wall Street. They didn't end up in any gated neighborhoods. No, they ended up in the cities where people who have been crushed were starting to protest, peacefully, mind you. And so, look, now, to be fair, the Capitol Police did not have that equipment. In fact, what I was reading in the research of this story is that a lot of their stuff happened to have been outdated shields, tear gas guns, which, by the way, they shouldn't use tear gas anyway because it's considered a chemical weapon. Nonetheless, they couldn't even fire that because they didn't want to because it's over 10 years old. And so, look, they didn't have that equipment. But as I pointed out, Ferguson and Baltimore, they had all the new equipment. Guess why? Guess why? I'll give you one guess. One chance to really unwrap that mystery. That said, D'Souza, even though he sounds like it, I don't think the guy's an idiot. No, I think he knows exactly what he's doing, what line he is walking. Because again, he's trying to be like, I'm pro-police. We need police, we value you. But police, government, very heavy-handed, not good. And it's all distraction and Democrats, this, blah, blah, blah. He knows exactly what he's doing. Because there's no logical consistency among the right wing anymore. And Dinesh D'Souza is a classic right-wing grifter, saying whatever he needs to say in order to appease the insane right wing, in which, of course, facts do not matter to them. And he does it, of course, so he can sell a few more of his pretty shitty movies. That's who this guy is. All right. Moving on. Let's get a more blame game. Let's see. A Fox News host believes that it was liberal policies that prevented motorists from being able to escape during the massive snowstorm that shut down the I-95 interstate. So now on Monday morning, a massive snowstorm hit the Richmond, Virginia area, dumping about a foot of snow onto the highway. Now, of course, that led to some massive traffic problems. The weather did. He ended up having a truck that jackknifed on I-95, which led to just an enormous pileup of cars. It got so bad that both lanes of traffic ended up being closed. So now, in fact, both lanes in 40 miles, so 40 miles both ways, there was just no movement at all. No movement at all. And that's in between the highway between Richmond and Washington, D.C. So now, again, the storm was so bad, you had about 2 inches of snow falling an hour. You had reduced visibility. You also had rain that had previously fallen and a road that was not treated. So they couldn't pre-treat the road because you had the rain, would have washed the treatment off the road. But then, of course, you had the freezing temperatures, you had the ice, and then on top of it, you had the snow. That's pretty bad. As a result of all of this, you had thousands of people in their cars that were stranded in freezing temperatures, some overnight, some without food or water, and just an absolutely disastrous situation. Now, thankfully, of course, there were no deaths, there were no major injuries. So we can be pretty thankful about that. Nonetheless, when talking about this, Fox News host Dana Perino decides that she's going to now assign blame for the lack of a fast rescue effort by saying that if only we had not demilitarized the police.
Governor Northam is probably counting the days until this is no longer his job, not Youngkin's yet. I want to point out one thing that I do not believe has been said yet. I talked to a state legislator there in Virginia, and he pointed out to me that in the last several years, many on the left made a decision that local sheriffs should not be allowed to have military-grade equipment, right? Because they said that that was a bad symbol and that it was too militaristic and authoritarian. But imagine if they were still allowed to have the equipment that they had just a few years ago, it probably would have come in very helpful today.
You want to know why no one has said that? Because it's dumb. Because that's a really stupid thing to say. God, I wish the cops had had militarized gear, because that would have helped during a snowstorm. What are you going to do? What are you going to have them arrest the snow? What are you going to have them, shoot it for resisting arrest? What is wrong with you? That makes absolutely no goddamn sense at all. Where did she sit there and think, I'm going to add this to the conversation, and then go, nailed it? What are you talking about? Now, I'm not saying that, of course, there aren't vehicles that the military has that are able to go through snow, but seriously, you're going to keep one of those on hand for a snowstorm? No, most likely you're going to end up using it to, I don't know, intimidate black people, essentially. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Okay. Now, no, the big problem here is that it's not because cops didn't have enough military equipment to go in and save the people stuck on I-95, right? No. I think the big problem here, wait for it, is, hey, you coming into work today? Bosses. Capitalism. Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. So think about it this way, right? Snowstorm. People usually don't get time off for snowstorms. You don't get paid time off for sure. No, bosses be like, hey, you coming into work today? Well, we just got a foot of snow. Yeah, you'll be fine. Make sure not to be late, too. We'll dock you points for that. What the fuck? So all of these people, Yeah, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them going back and forth to work. Well, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to have accidents. You're going to have slowdowns. You're going to have because of the inclement weather. And so that's what you're going to have. In fact, look, we're having a snowstorm here in my state right now, Michigan. And, you know, that snowstorm, it's already shut down one of the major highways. Because of, guess what? Accidents, because, hey, you coming into work, right? But look, they had up to 11 inches of snow in the area within a couple of hours. And state police had warned that, hey, look, you should avoid driving unless absolutely necessary. Because again, there was rain, then there was snow, and the roads were not treated, and it was just an absolute mess. They were not cleared. It was a disaster. Now, apparently, absolutely necessary in this country means you're coming into work. No, I don't want to come into work to, you know, make my boss additional profit by putting my life on the line, driving in a snowstorm. That's stupid. That's just really dumb. But again, to add on to that, what place is going to be open? Most of Central Virginia ended up losing power. That said, let's get to the blame, right? Because actually, before, you know, in the space before I showed you the clip, right? Because they had an earlier discussion, there were people blaming Glenn Youngkin. Now, fairly enough, Glenn Youngkin, that's not his fault either. Glenn Youngkin's not even governor yet. He hasn't taken power yet, I should say. But then they turn around and they blame liberal policies like demilitarization and then go after Ralph Northam. Now, Ralph Northam, again, what he said is, and by the way, this some criticism, and I can understand the criticism from people who are stuck in that because they're like, God damn it, I want to get out of here. I'm stuck. Well, Northam did say that, hey, look, we could have requested a National Guard. That was one of the criticisms. Why didn't you bring out the National Guard? Well, he said that, look, we've got manpower, but did you see it outside? It's kind of really hard to get the crews there. We've got crews out there, but we've got to get the equipment. We got to get the workers through the ice and snow and the broken down cars. And it's going to be a while before we get this cleared up, before we can actually start. And not only that, we got to pick up the truck that had jackknifed, you know, and all the cars that had crashed. That's going to take time. Unfortunately. And not only that, but look, here's the other thing. The state response is setting up places, you know, where people could get warm, you know, food and water and things like that. And so they did do what they could as a response. I don't see how additional military people, or I should say additional police with military gear, I don't see how they would help that, how they would assist with that situation. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's pretty stupid, not a good idea. And so now, let me go to Marcy Parker, right, who pointed out that, again, the affected section of the interstate was not pre-treated because of the heavy rain that preceded the snow, which fell at times as fast as 2 inches an hour. This was entirely too much for us to keep up with. And so understand, like, Mother Nature, there's not much you can do when she decides to take a big, giant, snowy dump on our heads. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got
big, massive dumps
of snow. Sometimes it happens. It's called winter time. It's called winter. And so sometimes the best thing that you can do is you got to try to prepare for it, you know, get some supplies and, you know, get yourself ready, hunker down, you know? But unfortunately, with our kind of capitalist system and our world, we're not allowed to do that. No. Unless it's like a hurricane that's going to blow down your store, you're coming into work. And that's it. You get your ass on the road. I don't care if you're sliding around, you're getting out here, you're getting back to work. And so, you know, now there's a lot of people that are saying, look, Jeff, you make sense, but I can't afford to stay home for a day. Even if there's inclement weather, we can't afford to do that. We got bills to pay. And even if they allow us to stay home, we're going to miss a day of pay. Again, we're living on the edge here. We can't afford to take a day off. I hear you, brothers and sisters. I get you. And that's why we need to start paying people to stay home during inclement weather. I know that sounds insane because no one else does that. Like, nobody does that. But we should. We should. And this kind of really shows you how far into corporate rule we actually are. How we value the profit margins of a corporation more than we do human lives. You know what I'm saying? Again, I think we should pay people to stay home during inclement weather if they can't get to work, if it's too dangerous to travel. If the government says, hey, you really shouldn't travel, then you shouldn't have to travel. That's it. And you should instead, you know, use that time. Yes, government workers will have to go out and we'll have to clear out the roads. So there will be some people working, but these are people specialized with a special ability to be able to handle the snow, to drive in vehicles that are able to handle the snow. And it's going to cut down on accidents, it's cut down on insurance, it's going to cut down on deaths. But again, the problem here is they don't want to pay people to stay home, just like during the pandemic. The pandemic, they also didn't want to pay people to stay home, much less essential workers. We had maybe like a 2-week lockdown at most, and then that's it. And so, look, the problem here is it's our system. It's capitalism. Bad weather and snowstorms are always going to happen. So I don't know, maybe we should have policies that put human beings first instead of corporate profits. If it's too dangerous to travel, it's too dangerous to go to work. Pay people to stay home. Lives should be treated as more important than profit. And that's it. But no. Right-wingers are like, oh, let's get the military out there to shoot the snow. That'll do it. I feel like I'm the only person that's actually saying this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like anyone else is taking that approach of, at least in mainstream media, and that hey, we should stay home during these things. We should maybe have less greed. All right. I don't know. Bomb the snow. Do a Trump, nuke the hurricane. That's what it is. Instead of the hurricane, we're going to nuke the snowstorms. We're going to drop the Moab on the snowstorm. It's going to be tremendous. We're going to blow the snowstorm right up. And the fires will melt all the snow. And then we're not going to have a problem. It'll be big and beautiful. Big, beautiful fire. It's going to melt all the snow. And it's going to be tremendous, okay? Oh, my God. That man was president for 4 years. He might be president again. Dear fucking God. All right. Nobody knows snow like me. Oh, this is horrible. I'm not even into the next segment, by the way. Jesus Christ. Senator Ron Johnson is saying really dumb things about the vaccine.
And by the way, I not only tested positive, but then I tested for antibodies, had a whopping level. So I had it, but I didn't have any symptoms. How do you explain that? Why would we just automatically assume that our natural immunity is going to be awful? It's going to be non-existent when generally you'd think the default position would be, if you've already had it, you're probably pretty well protected. Why have we assumed the worst? Why have we assumed that the body's natural immune system isn't the marvel that it really is? Why do we think that we can create something better than God in terms of combating disease? Now, there are certain things we have to do, but we've just made so many assumptions, and it's all pointed toward everybody getting a vaccine.
I had no symptoms, and I had COVID. Explain that, huh? Yeah. Tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that. Checkmate, libs. I win. Oh my God. That's your child. You're a child. That is a child argument. Well, it didn't apply to me, so I guess it applies to everyone, right? It didn't happen to me. So it's not going to happen to you, right? If it does, I really don't care. That's not how that works. Natural immunity, not how that works. And so it's how any of this works. And by the way, I love that. Oh, God, right? Why do we think that we can create something better than God with the vaccines? Well, okay, why don't you just stop using all modern medicine then? I mean, taking any medications? Well, you're interfering with God's plan. I mean, that's it. You interfere with God's plan. And by the way, you can apply that to any right-winger. I know they're already against the COVID-19 vaccine, but what about all the other vaccines? What about all the other marvels of modern medicine that they're taking right now? Hell, that clothes also not natural. God meant for us to be naked, so take your shirt off. What's the matter, Ron Johnson? Oh, you don't believe in God then? Huh? No, get naked for Jesus. Actually, don't. Please don't get naked for Jesus. Jesus don't like that. Come on. The whole argument here of natural is better. Okay, but when we didn't have modern medicine, people died like when they were in their 30s. And by the way, it's kind of related to this, is that sanitation back in like the olden days, we're talking like the Dark Ages and things like that. Turns out they found human beings had a lot of tapeworms back then. Until of course modern medicine and modern sanitation, but that's against the Bible, God. I mean, the marvel of the immune system, the marvel of the immune system and natural immunity. We're pretty well protected from the tapeworms, except that people had tapeworms. God. You're so freaking stupid. So let's get to some facts here, okay? Let's get to some facts. So now, as I said, child's argument, right? As I pointed out on the show before, there are people who get COVID that, because that's the way you get natural immunity, is you're unvaccinated and you get COVID, right? Well, there's a lot of people that didn't survive that. The 800,000 plus Americans and the 5 million people all over the world that got COVID and, natural immunity, not good enough, and they died. Weird. So now, the thing about natural immunity, as I pointed out, is that you never know how effective it's going to be until you get COVID. And of course, they're using that argument, though, in order to argue against vaccinating in the first place. And so now they've extended that argument now to, well, if you've already had COVID, then you don't need a vaccination, but you don't get a vaccination in the first place. No, you do need a vaccine. You do need a vaccine. You should be taking the vaccines. Okay? And so here's the thing, right? Now, if you get vaccinated and you have a breakthrough infection, which is happening, it's happening more and more now as a result of Omicron, guess what? Well, first of all, you're much less likely to die. But if you do get that breakthrough infection, it'll generally be fairly mild. And your immunity, your natural immunity, along with the immunity from the vaccines, will actually make it better than if you're vaccinated alone or if you're unvaccinated, obviously. And so I mean, generally, you're much more protected, at least for a time, if you've got all your shots, your two vaccines from Moderna, Pfizer, and of course the booster, and if you had COVID, or at least Omicron, because as I'm going to point out, some of the natural immunity from the previous versions of this virus, not lasting very well, not doing very well. So anyway, now that said, the people pushing against vaccines and using this argument of natural immunity, well, they're saying, well, if you didn't get vaccinated and you got COVID, well, then you shouldn't have to take the vaccine, right? Well, that's pretty stupid because, again, if you have the vaccine, then you have more protection. And see, here's the thing, too. As I mentioned, Omicron is now the dominant variant in the United States. And according to a University of Texas Medical Branch of Galveston study, natural immunity offers little protection against Omicron, where it offered some protection against the previous variants of the virus. It offers almost no protection against the newest variant. In fact, this is according to research by Professor Paiyong Shi. And in this report, notes that the level of natural immunity of unvaccinated individuals is about 16 times lower than in those who have been infected with previous variants about a month after the infection. And so now the number drops even further if that infection was 6 months prior. And so you get COVID and you have a limited amount of natural immunity that's built up, right? But it's actually much, much lower in unvaccinated individuals versus vaccinated individuals. And so simply put, if you had COVID and you're not vaccinated, your protection against future variants is very, very low. And what little there was fades very, very quickly. And so that explains why unvaccinated Americans are clogging up hospitals. Now, they also found that after looking at the vaccine and the new variant, that after receiving a booster, the level of antibodies increases dramatically, which of course is what we expected. That's why you say, get the booster, because that helps. Now, they also found, let me read the quote here from Dr. Shi first. He said that against Omicron, after the third dose, the booster dose, the antibody levels are equivalent to the original two dose against the original virus. And so the reason, of course, that it changes is because the virus has changed. And so now people need that third dose. Now, unfortunately, that means if we continue to have more variants, well, that might mean another booster. So another dose. Now, that's, of course, the nightmare scenario. Conservatives are like, oh my God, you're going to have to get booster after booster after booster. That's only because your dumb ass is incubating brand new variants all the freaking time when we want to be done with this thing. And look, and to, of course, be incredibly fair here. We have not, the West, and I mean by, the United States and all the wealthy OECD countries, right? We've done a shit job at getting the vaccines out to developing countries, to poorer countries. I mean, Omicron came from South Africa, right? So now, I'm not saying South Africa is like poor or anything like that, or is a terrible country. I'm just saying that you have in these areas that do not have access to these vaccines, or not that many, because our pharmaceutical companies are basically hoarding them for wealthier countries. So we've got pharmaceutical companies that have been keeping their patents on these vaccines, not allowing this patent to go out to be open source, and then hoarding the vaccines and then selling to these countries at, incredibly high prices that some of these countries might not be able to afford, or to be able to afford to inoculate their entire population. You're going to have these variants that pop up. And so this is not an issue of, oh, poor country, bad, shithole, blah, blah, blah. No, that's, that's racist, for one. No, the real issue here is pharmaceutical greed. And you have, these politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, that are paid off by the pharmaceutical industry to ensure that these companies continue to make massive amounts of profit off of life-saving, good, drugs. Now, the drugs generally are not the issue when it comes to pharmaceutical companies. Again, the issue with the pharmaceutical companies is the business model and the greed. And so that's the thing that we actually have to do something about. Nationalize the industry, perhaps. Or something. Something. Now, that said, more data from this report here from Dr. Shi. He notes that even those who have had only 2 of their vaccines, and so did not get a booster, they still fare much, much better than people who are unvaccinated and had COVID previously. So they had the natural immunity. Here's what Dr. Shi said, quote, "Even though that is not strong enough to defend you from being infected, your immunity inside the body will still help you in case you do get affected. Or infected, sorry." So now all of that, plus other studies that are coming out, and again, showing the effectiveness of the vaccine and how natural immunity from the previous strains of the virus
There's insanity in the control room. Who's got a hammer?
Are we back? Ran out of batteries. Oops. Which is funny because, I had 2 bars left on my battery. It ran out real fast. Weird. All right, so now anyway, let's get back to it. Where did I... Trying to figure out where I actually left off. Interesting. So let me just say, all the stuff that I've explained here is why Ron Johnson, Rand Paul, and Joe Rogan are just simply wrong. And not only that, but you also had COVID. The thing about COVID, and the thing that's really pushes back against what Ron Johnson is saying, like, oh, I got COVID, and I was totally fine. Oh, yeah, that's what happened. Well, it hits everybody differently. Again, there have been reports of people that were in really good shape. I know that the newest right-wing thing is to do fat shaming against people. Oh, the fatties, those are the ones who are dying. It's the fatties and the old people. Oh, yeah, that's what's going on. And that's why they're getting vaccinated. Ah, yes. No. There have been people that are in good shape, pretty healthy, no comorbidities or pre-existing conditions. Young people in their 20s and 30s that have gotten COVID and either gotten severely ill and have to suffer with long COVID, or they died. And so, and it's because, unfortunately, a lot of them listen to people like Joe Rogan. So, and now they're, again, either dead or suffering from some sort of disability. And of course, look, let's also note that, yes, people who are overweight, myself included, I am overweight. Some people happen to get COVID and have it mild and do pretty well. Now, of course, you tend to do a lot better if you've been vaccinated. But the point that I'm saying is you never really know how it's going to affect you until you get it, which actually makes a better case for vaccines. And I'm also not ignoring risk factors as well. Yes, one of the risk factors is being a little bit overweight. But that said, at the end of the day, everybody's different. And the best case for the vaccine is pointing out that you don't know how it's going to hit you. So you might as well be safe, get your vaccine and your booster. Again, it takes 10 minutes. You go to the local, whatever, CVS or Rite Aid, whatever. Or you can get it at like Walmart if you want, although you're pretty likely to get COVID at Walmart. But it's free and it takes like 10 minutes. And it's way, way better than dealing with a COVID infection that at the very least could make you end up missing at least a week of work, and at worst could probably kill you. So, I'm just saying, maybe listen to smart people. I'm not saying you should listen to me, even though I am very smart, but you should probably also listen to your doctor, which would be nice. Listen to your doctor, listen to the medical professionals. Don't listen to Joe Rogan or Ron Johnson. All right. So, by the way, does anybody, I'm probably going to confuse a lot of people, but whenever I think of Ron Johnson, I think of this meme, this cat. And the cat is meowing, but it sounds like he's saying, "Oh, Ron Johnson." I'm going to have to show you that cat video because that's what I think of every time I hear the name Ron Johnson. Oh, Ron Johnson. But it's a cat. I don't know. I'm confusing everyone. All right. What do you have your degree in? General technology. But I also am smart enough to listen to experts as well. And, to employ critical thinking, which we should all have. And we're able to look at evidence, data, that whole thing. And when you look at all that stuff, it shows that the vaccine is safe and effective. See, at least everybody knows the cat, or a lot of people know the cat. The O Long Johnson, but I think of O Ron Johnson. All right. Anyway. Let's move on. All right, it's only been an hour, and I still have 2 more stories. Jesus fucking Christ. What are we doing here? What are we doing? New York City Mayor Eric Adams is in a little bit of hot water for insulting working class New Yorkers. Take a look.
If my businesses are sharing with their employees, you are part of the ecosystem of this city. My low-skilled workers, my cooks, my dishwashers, my messengers, my shoe shine people, those who work in Dunkin' Donuts, they don't have the academic skills to sit in a corner office. They need this. We are in this together.
They don't have the academic skills to sit in the office. Wait, are you literally calling working class people dumb? Because that's what I'm hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. Low skilled. Low skilled. Let me just say, there's really no such thing as a low skilled job or a low skilled person. That is a myth in order to keep wages and benefits for the people working those jobs really low. Okay, a better thing, and by the way, this is the rhetoric that they used in the start of the pandemic. They used to call those jobs essential. But now they're low skill. Oh, I see. I see. Oh, okay, yes. Now, look, these jobs, a lot of these, again, what he considers to be low skill jobs, I call them low paying jobs that pay, poverty wages, starvation wages. They actually have a lot of their own skills. They're very often fast paced. And they are very often, of course, require great dexterity. For example, if you're a line cook, you got to know the recipes, you got to know things like that. You got to know all these different things. So they all do require their own specialized skills to be able to do those jobs effectively and fast. Again, you look at food service, you all got to work as pretty much an well-oiled machine. And you have to be able to know how to run the machines. And you have to be able to know how to get the orders out as quickly as possible, as most efficiently as possible, and of course, correct. Because again, if you don't do it correct, you're going to get an earful. So every job has its own skill. There is no such thing as a low-skilled job or a low-skilled person. And so, again, you have to have a lot of skills for these low-wage jobs, which translate, by the way, into higher-earning jobs as well. Working with people, teamwork, management, again, stress, dealing with unruly customers, things like that. And by the way, speaking of unruly customers, look, during the pandemic, and this, again, is one of the reasons they called these people essential, right? Is because, well, they are essential. And so these essential employees deserve a good living from these jobs, fair wages, fair benefits, and a safe working environment. During the pandemic, they were exposed to one of the most unsafe working environments. Dealing with anti-maskers, dealing with generally the worst kind of people that would come in. And so, again, you've got all these videos of Karens coming in. Oh, I need to see the manager. I'm flipping out because I got my, you got my order wrong, or I think you got my order wrong, or I just don't like that I had to wear a mask in here, or something like that. The most ridiculous things that these people have to deal with. And you know what's funny is that, look, Eric Adams was a cop. This is a great, great example, right? How come people in fast food have to have better skills at de-escalating situations than police officers? You know why? It's because people in fast food would get fired if they didn't. But cops, oh no, they don't get fired. The politicians, well, I mean, it's pretty hard to get rid of them, honestly. And so now here's the thing, and the overall point. Eric Adams, this is one politician, one of many on both sides that are putting out the same message. Get back to work. Get back to the mines. You need to start making profit for your employers again. And you need to do it in person. You need to do it in the office, which, as I mentioned before, it's a way to have more control of the workers. Now, of course, for these lower wage jobs that he considers low skill, you can't just telework. You have to be in the restaurant. Right? I mean, you can't make food over the phone. That's obvious. And so they've always been there. But again, a lot of people don't want to return to those jobs because you have that danger. You have COVID. And you have these people that are spreading things around. And so they don't care, though. They don't care. Both of them, again, Biden, Fauci, and Adams and Republican governors, they're all together saying, get your ass back to work. Now, Adams tried to frame this in an interesting way. He said, well, we're just trying to help the working class, and it's unfair that the people in the office get to sit in the corner office, while the shoe shiners and the people working at Dunkin' Donuts have to come in. What, you're trying to guilt the people in the office now into showing up at the office? I mean, because they can telework, you're trying to make them feel bad for being able to telework, for being lucky enough to have those jobs? I don't know. It's ridiculous, but I'm going to go here to what he said on CNN about this, because he doubled down. He said this: we have to open up. What we must understand is the resiliency of returning back to a normal life. If we don't open our cities, there are almost 1 million people that are behind on their rents right here in the city. We have low-skilled employees who can't do remote employment from home or telecommuting. That's not a reality in a city like New York, in America. I need my cities to open. Now look, how is that much different from what Republicans were saying back in 2020? How's that any different, really? And not much. I mean, the message is the same. Open up the schools. Get the people back to work. We got to open everything back up. We just got to open them up. Open it up. Open it up. But again, what's different here, of course, is, look, obviously we're in the middle of an Omicron surge, right? Very, very infectious variant. Now, we do have vaccines. That's kind of what's different from 2020. But at the same time, their plan is, and you saw it on a shirt, testing and vaccines. Well, it's fine, we have vaccines, but we don't have the tests. The federal government, the Biden administration, has fallen behind on providing enough tests for their own testing and opening up regime. So there's not enough tests there. You can't go out and buy tests. Testing sites are strained to the limit. And so what are you supposed to do? That's a failure of the administration. And so add on to that the fact that we have a large unvaccinated population, thanks to Republican politicians and online grifters, people like Joe Rogan. But still, you have that. Now, Eric Adams, as I mentioned, he's a Democrat. But see, that doesn't matter. This is not a partisan thing. Both parties serve corporations, because we live under corporate rule. And what the big corporations say goes. And they're saying it's time to get back to normal for them, which means making more and more profit. Which, by the way, they've already made a ton of profit during this pandemic. They're more profitable than ever. And it just shows you that they don't care about human lives. They don't care about anybody. Go back to work, even if it kills you. Or if you get sick, we're not going to pay you for the time that you have to spend in quarantine. And so, looks like you miss out on money. Well, I still don't understand what that plan to push everybody to get back to work and back into school is going to accomplish when you still have to quarantine. Unless, of course, the CDC is going to just pull what they did before and shorten or maybe even eliminate quarantine requirements. So then everybody who's got COVID is just going to go and, I can't take time off from work, so I just got to go and I got to work and I'm going to spread COVID to everybody. Hey, we're back to normal, everybody. We're back to normal. No, not back to normal. Not at all. Now, of course, this, there's a video, and that video of Eric Adams was posted on Twitter, and some people had some things to say about this. We'll start with AOC tweeting, "The suggestion that any job is a low skill is a myth perpetuated by wealthy interests to justify inhumane working conditions, little to no health care, and low wages. Plus, being a waitress has made me and many others better at our jobs than those who have never known that life." That's a good point. Another person adds, this guy seems to be gunning for most likely to put foot in mouth. Again, this is his first week. Wow. Ironically, they add, the low-skilled workers Eric Adams was referring to were deemed essential just a year ago. And to be quite clear, many individuals go to school and still work jobs that aren't in corporate. And by the way, there's also not enough corporate office jobs to accommodate all the people who might be completely qualified, perfectly qualified to do so, but can't find a specific opening. There's always going to be a shortage of certain types of jobs, and there's always going to be a need for these quote-unquote low-skill workers, which again, that's why they're essential in the first place, because we need them. Another person adds, I don't know, if I were a so-called low-skill worker that don't have the academic skills to sit in a corner office, I might just walk out on him and his city. Frederick Joseph says, Eric Adams is garbage, and the only low-skill workers in America are cops, such as himself. Shooting and harassing people is rocket science. Another person adds, in quotes, low-skill workers, academic skills, and adds, that language usually associates itself with elitism and people who don't favor a living wage. Shame on you, Eric Adams. 100%. 100%. Great point. Great point. And then another person adds, hey, I have a master's from Columbia and worked as a reporter while at the same time earning more per hour driving for DoorDash. I've had Uber drivers who were doctors in their home countries. The economy is broken. Don't assume shit about low-skilled workers. 100%. I couldn't love it more. Hey, Eric, and all the other corporate elite Democrats and Republicans, by the way, who despise the working class. Now, Republicans, of course, openly despise the working class. The Democrats, well, they hide it better than others, but they also, a lot of them are elitists, and a lot of them also despise the working class. Get it through your thick heads. We're not going to take it anymore. There's an awakening class consciousness in this country. We're seeing it with the Great Resignation. We're seeing it with people who are going on strike and fighting for labor rights. People are waking up to corporate rule, and we don't like what we see. And we are going to change it. So you might want to prepare for that, because the working class is coming, and we're coming to get our rights and to get the things that we deserve, which is fair pay, benefits, and to be treated like human beings. All right. Last story. Real quick here. How well did rich people do during the pandemic? Apparently pretty goddamn well. In fact, according to a new analysis out on Tuesday by Americans for Tax Fairness, billionaires saw their combined wealth increase in 2021 by $1 trillion. I say that, and I almost want to channel like Dr. $1 billion. Well, that's nothing now. No. You have the wealthiest corporations in this world and the wealthiest billionaires getting over $1 trillion. And that's just in a year. That's a 25% increase. Now, leading the group of 750 billionaires is, of course, none other than tech bro Elon Musk, who actually had about $118.2 billion in wealth gains. That's a 77% increase from 2020. Former Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, meanwhile, saw their net worth grow by $1.4 billion and $18.3 billion, respectively. So overall, billionaires in the United States now collectively own $5.1 trillion in wealth. So to answer the question, they're doing amazing, fantastic. If you're a rich person in America, you have never done better. Never done better. By the way, this is the same time that these same employers are saying, but we can't give you higher wages and benefits. No, we can't give you a union. That's crazy. We can't afford that. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting, isn't it? And by the way, also at the same time, where a lot of companies are raising their prices, claiming, oh no, with inflation, we have to raise prices or we're not going to make a lot of money. Except that they're raising prices while already making a ton of money in order to make even more money. You see what's going on here. So now compare that to how everyone else is doing. Now, ATF's analysis finds, by contrast, according to the latest Federal Reserve data, the bottom half, 50% of the US population, collectively owns only about $3.4 trillion in wealth. So now, again, 750 people own $5.1 trillion in wealth, while everyone else, the bottom 50%, own way less than that. Does anybody see anything wrong with that? Anybody? Anybody? I mean, it seems like, and the data definitely shows that we have had a massive upward transfer of wealth from everyone else to the rich. I mean, you can also look, by the way, as an example, the vast majority of pandemic aid, right, passed by Congress. Now, that aid went primarily to the rich. Now, of course, you had some scraps that went to regular people, a few billion here for some stimmy checks and some unemployment benefits. Great. But again, the vast majority went to the banks and went to giant corporations. If anything suggests or shows you, proves to you that we are living under corporate rule, it should be this. And all the other numerous studies over the years that I've talked about that have said essentially the same things. And every time I do these segments, by the way, either nobody cares or everybody chimes in the comments section and says, yeah, no shit, we already know this. Okay, yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's very obvious. But at the same time, there's a lot of people out there who don't know the reality, who haven't seen the reality, and are like, oh my God, they're stealing from us. Well, this is how much they're stealing from you. And they're stealing from you not just through your tax money and tax giveaways by buying politicians, but they're also stealing your labor. And they're not giving you what you deserve in return for that labor. Now, it gets worse, right? Because, look, we're asking for some things, right? We're asking for things, just basic things, healthcare, right? Now, at the same time that these corporations and billionaires have made that much money, over $1 trillion over the last year, they have also blocked passage of things like, for example, Build Back Better, right? Now, in its $3.5 trillion form, before it was pared back to 1.7 or 1.4, or, at the end of the day, if anything even passes, it's going to be like an expired coupon to Denny's. It would have had Medicare being allowed to negotiate prescription drugs. Now, that would have lowered the prices of prescription drugs for everybody. And especially, by the way, the government, which the government buys the majority of prescription drugs. It also would have provided universal pre-K, free 2-year community college, would have expanded Medicare to, include free vision, hearing, and dental, would have had money directed towards fighting climate change, which is an existential crisis for this country and the world, and would have done many other positive things. Paid leave is another great example. And so, look, these things are essential to the country. These things are what other countries have And by the way, other countries have done better. They actually offer more. They actually have universal health care in many places. But these companies, well, they see the modest things that were offered in Build Back Better, and they say, oh, no, you don't get any of that. Especially now that we got the idiots in the Democratic Party to go and pass the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. We got them to pass that, to decouple that from the social welfare spending, on the promise, of course, that, they'll talk about it, maybe pass it later. No. There was no actual promise. It was a lie. And it was a failure of the Democratic Party to actually be able to do something for their constituents. Complete and utter failure. Complete and utter capitulation. Paid to lose. And so, and look, how they did it is, of course, they got their goons, both in the Republican and Democratic parties. Again, Republicans 100% against anything in Build Back Better. And of course, you had in the Democratic Party, the rotating villains, which allow them, of course, to get away with not passing anything. Like the Senate parliamentarian. Oh, we can't do this. We got the Senate parliamentarian. They say no. Well, the Senate parliamentarian, as I mentioned, you could fire that person and you could put someone else in. Real easy. Very, very simple. You can get past the Senate parliamentarian if you wanted to. And then you have, if it's not them, it's Joe Manchin. If it's not Joe Manchin, it's Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. And if it's not either of them, it's John Tester or Chris Coons or insert corporate Democrat here. And by the way, if you ever get into a situation where they all say, oh no, we are in support of it, yes, well, that's because it's very likely to pass a filibuster, which is, again, is where the Republicans come into play, because they have enough to be able to filibuster, and the Democrats don't have enough votes to pass it. And so, look, that's unfortunately how the game is played. Now, I know that there are some people who are like, well, why don't we just break things up into individual bills? Well, then you couldn't do it through budget reconciliation. And that's the way that they said, oh, we're going to try and pass this through budget reconciliation to get past the filibuster. But if you break it all apart into single bills, then you can't run it through budget reconciliation. So you can only do it so many times per year per Senate rules. And so, again, it's an example of how they use process against getting basically anything done. Oh, we can't do it because of the rules of the Senate, and we got arcane rules and the processes, and we can't break this up, and we can't individual votes because we get the filibuster, but we don't want to get rid of the filibuster, or maybe we'll get rid of the filibuster, kind of, maybe a little bit, sort of, kind of, possibly, but what can we do? We couldn't do anything. Oh, that's so sad. Hey, vote blue. Vote for Democrats. But, okay, but why? What have you done? And again, I'm not saying vote for Republicans, and I'm not saying not vote. I'm just saying, Democrats, you can't just keep relying on people to turn out if you do nothing. That's only, again, younger people, we're not buying the game because we know that you're playing this game. And unfortunately, well, that's just, again, look, Democrats win and nothing gets passed. Democrats lose. Well, suddenly there's no more pressure on the Democrats, the corporate Democrats, I should say, to, the fight. Oh, well, yeah, look, I wish we could do something, but Republicans are in charge now. So we can't do anything. But if you elect Democrats, then maybe we can get something done. You elect Democrats, Republicans, filibuster, can't do anything. Senate parliamentarian, can't do anything. Joe Manchin, can't do anything. You see how both parties benefit under corporate rule, because that's what we're living under. And so I'm not saying that there aren't good Democrats. There are good Democrats. There are good progressive Democrats, but there's not enough of them. And so what you have is a majority party that is corrupt. And you have two parties, both parties, that are deeply corrupt. And it's not just because they're bad people. No, it's a system. The system is corrupt. And so that's why you have this situation that we're in, that we get no real progress on the things that regular people actually care about. And so that's the situation. And by the way, in this kind of environment, this is why fascism emerges, because people get tired of the gridlock and get tired of the broken promises. And right-wingers, fascists, are more than happy to make promises that they never intend to keep. And so we really are stuck in a pretty bad situation. One more thing here. That analysis, going back to Build Back Better, found that Musk's single-year wealth gain alone would more than pay for 6 years of the free preschool for 6 million children. Universal pre-K. But of course, it's not going to happen for all of the reasons that I just described. All of the reasons. They're not going to pay taxes on any of their income. And by the way, the billionaires and their massive windfall in 2021 will go untaxed as a result of unrealized capital gains. Now, Senator Ron Wyden tried to get that into Build Back Better. You know what it was defeated by? Democrats. Very, very quickly. Didn't last an hour. Gone. Immediately yeeted and ejected from the bill. So that's Democrats doing. As a result, Bezos and Musk are not going to pay taxes on any of that unrealized income. But the child tax credit that you might have gotten, you might have been able to take advantage of, that is now gone, well, that's just going to mean that you get a smaller return at the end of the year. You think we're going to actually give you money with no strings attached? Oh, no. Welfare is for corporations. Welfare is for corporations. You get bootstraps. This is corporate rule. This is why we have to fight the system and fix the system. And you don't do that by replacing politicians. Now, that said, you can still use your vote tactically to try to stop a fascist takeover. But make no mistake, if you actually want to change and prevent fascism, you've got to change the system. You've got to fight the system. Okay. All right. Yeah, I know. I depressed you. And went way over time. The show is normally supposed to be about an hour. I have been averaging like an hour and a half every day. It's so weird. It's so weird. Keep doing it, though. Keep doing it. All right. Anyway, I got to go. I got to head out. Thank you so much for going around the nation with me today. I really, really appreciate it. Paige Lars, thank you for cheering 20 bits. Smetty Dragon, thank you for subbing for 6 months at Tier 1. Appreciate that on Twitch. Let's go over here to real quick on YouTube. Forgive my aimless clicking, but I will find out what I'm looking for. Hold on. So I just want to thank some people that have given some super chats here. Marty Darno. Oh, Ron Johnson. Indeed. Dango Bango, that is probably not a good idea. I don't believe in biological warfare. Jonathan Leiter asks, are there still shoe shine guys in New York City? I think you should disclose who is shining his shoes. And is there a melody in his heart? Fascinating. I know that cat, says Adult Onesie. Oh, yeah, you know what? Correction on that. Omicron didn't come from South Africa. South Africa identified it. Sorry, you're right. I do remember reading about that. But I got a little ahead of myself. ADHD. My bad, but thank you for the correction. The virus spawned from anti-vaxxers in Europe who got their idea from the United States. And also added, the federal government found another Trump member of the Florida Village guilty of committing voter fraud. Ah, yes. They keep finding people in the villages. Real weird. Very, very strange. Wow. How do they just keep finding this voter fraud among Republicans? I don't understand. We found the fraud though. We found the fraud. It's right there. It's Republicans. It's the fraud. God, what a disaster. Total disaster. Our country. Wow. Horrible. Horrible. All right. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Again, you were all wonderful people, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow here. Don't forget to check out Garland's speech. I was watching that before the show, and I about fell asleep. I was so bored, because there was like nothing really in it. Like, oh, we will get we will follow the facts and we will find the people responsible. And so we just got to wait until the investigation is over with. Okay, well, yeah, there wasn't. So basically no information, no names, just please wait. We're working on it. He didn't say much, but he talked for like 40 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. Not much of anything. All right. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you later. Have a good night. Stay safe.
Mike Pounds.
Please clap.
I will eat your ass.
I like my meat tight.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.